Now starting. All attendees are in listen-only.
To a teleconference with Senator Charles Schumer, who is one of the most powerful people in our country. And I want to, first of all, thank the senator for taking time out of a crazy busy schedule. He is a friend of this region, has been for as long as I can remember. On the call for my board chair, Rob Shands. We have all of our top CEO, university, college presidents, business owners, and so many people that the senator has helped throughout his career, and we want to thank him for that. He has brought on this stimulus package $40 billion with a B dollars to New York State, $160 million to Monroe County. He is at the center of the stimulus package, which has been a lifeblood for all of us. He has the most up-to-date information in terms of what's going on here. But I want to thank him. I want to thank his great team. If I can say Chris Zeltman from Rochester, superstar. My team, Mark Cohen and Cassie Franklin, for getting this all set up today. I want to thank Senator, your Chief Technology Officer, Iris, for making this happen as well. But, sir, I want to welcome you to the broadcast and turn it over to you, sir.
Thank you, Bob. And 20 years ago, when someone would say webinar, we would think it would be one of Donald Duck's children or something. So it's great to be here with all of you. And thank you, and I hope everyone is keeping safe. Just a few little personal notes before we get into the substance here, since so many of you are family. We've known each other for so long. And I thank Bob, you, the chamber, and all the leaders. Rochester is an area that has always amazed me. During crises, people pull together better than just about any other place. It's unique almost to Rochester, and I admire it greatly. So personal basis, just first, I hope everybody is keeping their social distancing. That is really important. Sometimes it seems like it's a pain in the neck, but it really works better than anything else, according to all of our scientists. You have many great ones up there in the Rochester Finger Lakes area. So me personally, I came home, we finished this bill, which passed 96-0. If you think America can't pull together during time of crisis, with all the partisanship and everything else, the fact that Bernie Sanders, our most liberal member, and Ted Cruz, our most conservative member, voted for the same bill that actually Steve Mnuchin and I put together more than anybody else, the president's Treasury Secretary, shows that we can come together in times of real need. That was great. Anyway, I left my house at midnight two weeks ago. I wanted to be back in New York. Washington is a place to work, but I don't do much hanging out there. And came back, got to my house at 4:30, and since then I have only touched, physically at least, 4 human beings. My wife, my daughter and her husband, my son-in-law, and their 1-year, 3-month-old baby. They have a small apartment, so the 3 of them came to live with us. And I will tell you, I've been working 24/7, but the most exhausting hour and a half of each day is the hour and a half I'm assigned to watch little Noah. He runs around the house. Our house, of course, it's been decades since it was childproof. He pulls all the books off the shelves. He goes into the closets and pulls out the pots and pans. The only time I really got in trouble with my wife is somehow I let him into the china drawer and he threw some china on the floor to my detriment. Anyway, so I'm staying away. I hope you all are. I go for a walk every day. I stay 6 feet away from people, but that's about it. Second little bit of advice, health-wise, this is not foolproof, and maybe all the doctors at the great institutions in Rochester will countermand me, but from what I've gleaned from my doctors, take your temperature in the morning and the evening. As I said, it's not foolproof. You could have COVID and no temperature, but it's a it's as good an indication as any, given if you're staying at home. I recommend it. 2 more things about this. The crisis itself is different. As you know, we've all lived together from 9/11 through the Great Depression, through Sandy and all the storms that occurred in the Rochester area through this. It's different. It's different in 2 ways. One, we just don't know enough. We don't know how long it'll last. We're not even sure exactly how it's transmitted. We don't know what the right medications are in certain instances, and there's dispute about that. I asked my doctor a simple question. If I get it once, will I get it again? Uncertain, depending level of antibodies you produce. So there's so much we don't know, and that affects our economy too, since this is the first time we're all staying at home. How badly, for how long will it affect our economy? These plague on you. And you add to that the fact that we are isolated, and all isolated. And New Yorkers, we like to come together. We like to be with one another. We did that time and time again. It's really bothersome and troubling and preys on you when you're in your house for 2 weeks alone, or when you're in a house for 2 weeks and you don't see any other human beings. And then all the other little problems. I have parents, 91 and 96, as many of you know. They, praise God, celebrated their 71st anniversary, April 3rd. We had no celebration, of course. But my mom is certain that I am not visiting her because I have the coronavirus. So I have to call her every 2-3 hours and assure her. We're all going through these little things, not close to what the first responders, those who have lost loved ones, those who are suffering with the virus now, but it preys on all of us. So we have to stay strong. We're New Yorkers. We get through everything. Americans get through everything. We will. I read a biography recently of the Patriots at Valley Forge. All winter, they walked around with no shoes in the snow. They were farmers, but they had to shoot their horses and eat the meat of their horses. They couldn't get any provisions because none of the stores around there would take the Patriot currency, only loyalist. They fought hard and preserved our freedom. If they can do it, we can do it, and I'm sure we will. Let me go over what's in the bill, broadly defined. It's a very good bill for both the country and New York. We worked very hard on it. And the original bill, frankly, that Leader McConnell put down was not very good. It did have $400 billion for the largest corporations, magnified that by the Fed, and it's trillions of dollars. But with no strings attached, with no oversight, Lord knows who would get those loans. And then second, it had a payment to everybody, a good thing. $1,200 for each person who makes under $75,000. It was sort of regressive. They said poor people would only get $600, but that was about it. That was the plan. We together added a lot of things to it, and here they are. First, and maybe foremost, is a Marshall Plan for our hospitals, our nursing homes, our healthcare institutions. They are desperately short of money. I'm sure if you ask people at your larger hospitals like Strong, they're losing money, but go to the more rural hospitals, out in Yates County or somewhere like that, and it's probably even worse. Hospitals are laying off people because they can't do elective surgery. Their workers don't have the equipment, the PPE, the gloves, the masks, of course, the ventilators that people need. So we put in $150 billion, $100 billion for the hospitals and $50 billion for a different program called PIP for hospitals, nursing homes, community centers, that they can use flexibly to keep them afloat and deal with this issue. Your hospitals should be getting some of the money in the next day or two. I've spoken to both Vice President Pence and Secretary of HHS Azar, and they say it's going out right away, the first $30 billion. And this money can be used flexibly. The bottom line is that, for instance, let's say a nurse has taken a 5-year sabbatical, but you want her back, and her kids are now home because they're not in school. That money could pay for daycare for the kids so the nurse could come in and be on the shift because there's a shortage of workers. So it's flexible. Of the $150 billion, New York gets $25 billion of that. We do very, very well. And this whole bill, we do well. New York will get about $110 billion out of this bill between the hospitals and unemployment and small business, direct money to states and localities. I'll get to all of these things in a minute. The second thing we did, which is probably the most far-reaching, is called, they now call it pandemic unemployment insurance. We called it, I pressed something here by accident.
Oh, you're fine. You're good.
Can you see me?
Yep, you're good.
Okay, because I'm my thing, Scott or someone is showing connected to go to webinar.
We can see you and hear you, Senator.
Can you see me?
Yep, we can see you and hear you. Yep.
Okay, I'll just leave that. I won't see you, the problem, but that's okay. If you guys know what I should do, do it. I accidentally touched the mouse here, which is sitting at my desk. Okay. Second thing that we did is we created this pandemic unemployment insurance. If you are laid off from your job, you can get, the federal government will pay you, if your salary is below about $70,000, $75,000 in New York, your full salary for 4 months till July 31st. That gets at the people who need the help the most. These are people out of work, almost all of them, no fault on their own. But the beauty of this program is we tell the employer to, and this applies to any employer, big, small, little, medium. We tell the employer, we say, you put this person on furlough. That means they're still on your payroll. You're not paying them, but they're on your payroll, and whatever benefits they might have, healthcare benefits that you paid for at the beginning of the year, they keep. The second purpose of this, the first is to get money right in the hands quickly of people who need it the most. But the second purpose, very important, is that since the employees are not just on unemployment insurance and they'll scatter to the winds, the business can reconstitute once this scourge is over. Each business, those of you who are small or even medium-sized business people or large, know it's an organic thing. And it depends on your employees. You know, a restaurant depends on the owner and the chef and the maitre d' and the waiters and the cleaners. Well, they'll all be able to stay on the payroll and then come right back. And it makes a great deal of sense. And for businesses under 500, this is true. And they get loans as well for their other expenses, OTPS expenses. And those loans are forgiven if they keep all their employees on the payroll. So this is a very good program for the unemployed, and I've bled into the small business part. For larger businesses, this program is in existence. You can get loans to help you through your OTPS. They did not put in the bill, our colleagues on the other side of the aisle were opposed, that these loans could be forgiven the way they can for businesses under 500. We are trying to make that happen in COVID-4. It makes sense. A lot of businesses, they can have 1,000 people, but if they're not investment grade or they have a lot of lending, a loan may not help them, but a grant can. And the main thing is to keep the people working and have the business reconstitute. So the small business provision and this business provision is we added in, I fought very hard for this, apply nonprofits as well, whatever size, below 500 in the small business section where your loans are forgiven, over 500 in the medium-sized business section where your loans are not forgiven, but you do get low interest loans. And this is very, excuse me, this is very important. For our nonprofits are often the groups that are providing the social services for people who need help. And nonprofits are a large part of the Rochester, Finger Lakes area economy. So they're in the bill. It also applies, by the way, nonprofits, churches. We have a lot of small churches, many in the inner city, but many in rural areas. There's no collection plate. We don't want them to go out of business. They do a lot of social services, etc. There may be a challenge by the ACLU, but in the bill, they get the same kind of help that other nonprofits would get. And so if you're in a small church, please let the pastor know. They're trying to get the word out about that. The next thing we did is we did forbearance. If you have a federal mortgage, you know, Fannie, Freddie, HHFA, you cannot be foreclosed on for 6 months. You also, if you're a tenant, you can't be evicted for a shorter period of time. I think it's about 3 or 4 months. So that at least keeps people in place in their homes. If you're a student, your student loans are delayed. We wanted some of them forgiven, but at least you won't have to pay them during this crisis. And they don't double, but they go to the back of your program. So that is important too. And that's that's dealing with nonprofit. One other thing in the business side, this applies to all businesses. There is a 50% tax credit if you keep an employee, not if furlough them under the either small business or middle-sized business program. But if you're actually continuing to pay them, you will get a 50% tax credit, and it's refundable. So if your business doesn't pay that much in taxes or it's a nonprofit, you can get that tax credit, and that's pretty significant in helping businesses that want to keep their business, their employees that are not on the margin. The big corporate lending, there's $400 billion of that. That's what the administration cared most about. Mnuchin, he's a financier, he knows this stuff. But it had no transparency. So you wouldn't know who was getting the loan, you wouldn't know the terms of the loan, etc. We forced transparency. Now each loan, whether approved or rejected, has to be totally made public within 14 days. And we have 3 levels of oversight to look at these. Bottom line is that the president's trying to uncut the oversight, but we have some levels that he can't overcut. We do not want to go through TARP, where a lot of these loans were done in a bad way and no one ever knew till later, and the public got furious. So we're trying to be much tighter on that. State and local money. So we worked very hard. Again, our Republican colleagues were opposed to any aid to state and localities. This is one of the things that we closed last. But we got $150 billion for the country. New York State did very well in this. New York State itself got $5.1 billion in direct money, but also $4 billion for our mass transit, particularly our MTA downstate, which was going broke, and $1 billion for education aid that goes to the state but must go to the school districts. And those of you who are in school districts, the reason they were not cut, but rather frozen, was because of the $1 billion of federal aid. So New York State, aside from the big FMAP fight, which different people have sides, still got $10 billion. And with a $15 billion shortfall, that is quite good. And I'm proud of what we did there. We're going to try to get more in the next bill. And I insisted that some of the money go to the localities. And so Monroe County, I believe, I was on the phone the other day with Adam, your great county executive, but Monroe County, looking up the numbers here, it's like $120 million. I got to see. All right, well, it's approximately $120 million. We also put in different kinds of things. That money can go directly to the Rochester Finger Lakes area. So in FMAP, Monroe County gets $35 million, and I'll just go through some numbers. Ontario, $3 million, Wayne, $2 million. That's some money that helps them. CDBG, Rochester gets 4.8, the city, Monroe County gets $1 million. The airport is going to get $12 million, running out of people flying and not getting their fees. Oh, this is important to Rochester. We put in $1 billion of money. Can you guys still see me?
Yep, perfect. See you and hear you clearly.
Now I'm just seeing the screen here. We got $1 billion. That money goes directly to universities, public and private. These are tough times, and that money, we did not have that go through the state, because in many states they get the money and then they cut your aid. So that is not a good thing. And many other things. The community health centers in Rochester will get a lot of money. The Anthony Gordon Center gets close to $1 million. The Oak Orchard Health in Brockport gets $1 million. Rochester Primary Care 2.3. I could go through the list. Bottom line is, New York does very well in this bill. A total of about $110 billion between the small businesses, the hospitals, the universities, the schools, the transit. And we're going to try to do more. Final point. There will be a COVID-4. This bill didn't have everything we wanted. Obviously, it's always a negotiation. And it didn't, there are probably some holes of things that we haven't found, that we didn't realize at that time. I do believe there'll be a COVID-4 bill. Originally, Leader McConnell said we didn't need a COVID-4 bill, but now he agrees we need one. And so we are going to have one. And I look forward to any of your suggestions as to how to make this better, because there's lots of improvement that has to be made, and we're going to continue to try and make it as best we can. I think I'm ready for some questions now. And so, Bob.
That was great. No, great intro. They're coming in like crazy. I'll try and take them in order. The first one, is there any help for businesses with an existing SBA loan, like a standard SBA, it says SBA 7A 504, or microloans? Pretty specific.
Now, one of the big things left out in the original SBA bill, you may have heard McConnell went to the floor today to ask for another $250 billion for SBA alone, because they're going to run out. They're not going to run out today, but he went to the floor. Our side thought it was sort of a political stunt because he did no negotiations with the Democrats. But he left out money for all of the things that are running out of money. Grant program, the disaster part of the program, and parts of the 7A parts of the program. So we're going to put in the extra money, but we're going to make sure that situations like the one you mentioned are covered, because a good number of businesses, I'm sure a lot of them are on the line here, they're trying to get their SBA loans and having trouble. If you're a larger institution, even below 500, which is the limit for SBA, and you have a good relationship with a bank, you'll be okay. But if you're a nonprofit, if you're a smaller institution, if you're a restaurant, we depend on our restaurants downtown and elsewhere, you may not have that relationship. And what we're trying to do as we renegotiate the second SBA package is make it better and easier for those who don't have a direct relationship with a banker can get this. And SBA borrowers who are receiving, while you're receiving the 6 months of debt relief, you can apply for a PPP loan through the disaster assistance loan. So you can get that as well. An answer directly to your question.
Great, Senator. Thanks. On the line, we have a lot of higher education presidents who you know well and have been friends with for years. Next question is coming, I'm sure, from one of them. Higher education, just like any other business, is going to take a hit. Do you have any plans or thoughts how to help higher ed?
As I mentioned, our New York universities, this is something I pushed, will get about $953 million. It's direct money, and it's distributed on the basis of the number of students and the number of Pell Grants. So, and it goes to both public and private. And the best thing is it's direct money. So the state can't take a share, the locality can't take a share, and it's very flexible. You can use it for what you want.
Great. Okay, next one in, Senator. They're coming in like crazy. Having applied for PPP on April 3rd, how long can we expect to wait for the funds? And will we have these before April 15th payrolls when they're due?
Okay, so CARES said PPP should turn around the loans quickly. And we said you got to get rid of all of the rigmarole that you do in a normal small business loan because it takes so long. So we know that many businesses will go under. Now, there's been a lot of delays in the program initially. And that's why I'll send you a copy of some of the proposals that Senator Cardin, who's our ranking Democrat on small business, made, and asked McConnell, instead of just putting in more money, $100 billion's been spent, but we still have $250. Let's make changes and put in the more money so people like the gentleman or lady who asked the question on the phone can get their money. We are pushing SBA. I speak to the SBA administrator every 2 days to make sure participating lenders and the processing system can turn around the loans real quickly.
Thanks, Senator. A quick note, our local SBA leader, Virginia Smith, is doing an excellent job, so we appreciate that help. Next question coming in.
Maybe the last questioner, Bob, should get on the line with Virginia right after this. Would you do that, Virginia?
I would definitely do that.
Great, thanks.
The SBA's rollout of the PPP and other programs have been an evolving struggle. Do you have any thoughts how this will look going forward?
Yes, and that was the fight we had on the floor now. You probably didn't hear about it. But again, McConnell, without talking to the Democrats, and this is annoying, because the only way you get something passed is bipartisan. And Pelosi already said she wouldn't move any bill. He didn't, as he negotiated with her on the floor to get it through the House. But he just put a bill on the floor that changed one word. He said he moved the number up from 250 to, I believe it was 500. But he made none of the changes. And your questioner is saying that a lot of eligible businesses are getting turned away by SBA certified banks. Not enough financial institutions are dealing with them. If you go to a big bank, they're not taking you. So we have a whole bunch of fixes that we want to add to the extra money. And that's why we're holding up the bill. It's like a race car at the stop that's out of gas and has 2 flat tires. Well, you can fill up the gas, but you got to get the flat tires fixed to get the thing going. So we are mindful of the problems. We have a whole bunch of changes proposed, a whole bunch of additions to the programs that have run out of money, like the grants, which some people need, and we're pushing hard to get those done very, very quickly. Please tell your congressman, especially if they're on the other side of the aisle, to just contact McConnell or McCarthy, their leader, and say, we need to make some of these fixes. More money without fixing it isn't going to help our problem.
Thanks, Senator. You may have answered this already, the next question, but is there legislation coming in that will help the business and the economy, which I think you just mentioned the next round, but if you want to just touch on that, or
yes.
I want to respect your time too here, so let me know.
This first round was mainly dealt to the emergency, both business, both health and economic. But the immediate emergency is getting money in the pockets of people who have lost their jobs through no fault of their own. You probably saw today 6 million new people sought to join the unemployment rolls. And so I wanted to do that quickly, and between the small business program where the business owner can pay to keep their employee on and the pandemic unemployment insurance, we should take care of just about everybody who lost their job. But the next step is building the economy back up again. And we're going to have to look at a whole lot of things. I mean, obviously some infrastructure, obviously dealing with some companies that are on the edge. The airline industry was ready to go under, and I was assigned to try and come up with a negotiation to keep them going. And I think they will by the end of the week. We wanted to make the terms generous enough that they'd continue, but not so generous that they'd get a lot of money and then just fire all their employees. And I think we threaded the needle there, and I think they're happy with it. So we're going to have to look at all different sectors of the economy that are having trouble. And I welcome suggestions, Bob, from the chamber and other people to make sure that happens. Please send them our way. We're going to have to continue to help our hospitals. We're going to have to continue to help our state and local governments. Monroe got, I think, $120 million in the direct grants that we gave. We're going to still have to do some of the things that we've done already, but we're also going to have to do more things. People are talking about an infrastructure plan. People are talking about money so we can get broadband to our rural and inner city areas. Those are the kind of things that would help the economy and improve our economy down the road. But you need broadband now in this stay-at-home moment to go to school, be a doctor if you can't get into your office, etc.
It's a great point. Senator, I'm trying too, because I want to respect your time here.
Okay.
Your thoughts on future funding for child care and arts and cultural institutions?
Okay. Arts and cultural institutions are now included in all of the programs, all nonprofits. As I said, a lot of the programs are refundable. So, you know, if it's a tax break for a regular business and you don't pay taxes, you will get actual money like a refundable will be. I felt very important about our arts institutions, our cultural institutions, and all of our nonprofits. So they are taken care of well, and they are very happy. There was another part to the question.
The child care industry.
$132 million will go to New York child care. We got something like $20 billion in the bill. We need to get more next time.
So I want to respect your time. I know you had a hard stop. I have more questions, and we can bail those to you, or if you want to keep going, it's up to you.
No, I got to get off right now. There's a lot going on. We have Vice President Pence talking to my caucus telephonically in a little bit. I got to prepare for that. So I apologize for being so quick. But if you send Bob your questions, he can talk to Chris, and Chris can come up with the right expert on my staff to try and answer them. We can't, I should say this, the one thing we can't do, unfortunately, you're a small business, say I want Schumer's office to find me a bank that will loan it. We can't do that. We'll be overwhelmed. But we can refer you to groups that do that. There are groups out there that can help you do that, and Rochester has a few of them. Right, Chris?
Senator, I want to thank you for taking time out of your crazy busy schedule. We can see you and hear you perfectly, just so you know, but appreciate so much you doing this. It means a lot. We have 5 people on the line, but hearing it directly from you really makes a huge difference. We'll get the rest of these questions through Chris Selman. But sir, I want, first of all, thank you for all you've done for us. You have many friends on this line. You've been friends for decades. I want to thank you for what you've done. I also want to urge you to stay healthy, keep up the great leadership you're doing, and all you've done for us. We are extremely grateful for what you've done for us with the money, but most importantly today for your time, sir. And I know your time is very precious. So I want to wish you the very best, and thank you.
I always have time for Rochester, your chamber, and anybody. And I'll be, as soon as I'm allowed to travel, I'll be on my every other 2-3 weeks visit to the Rochester Finger Lakes area, because I miss you.
You are the best.
Thank you.
Senator.
Bye-bye.
You have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.